Life and the Museum of Moscow present. Hello everyone! Did you know that Moscow has a real Unter den Linden Street? That's the nickname Moscow residents gave to Povarskaya Street in the early 20th century. And today we're going to take a stroll down it. The street got its name from Povarskaya Sloboda, a settlement that first appeared here in the 16th century. So the names of the streets and alleys in this area are rather interesting. Povarskaya means Cook's Street. Then there are knife, tablecloth and bread alleys, Nozhovy, Skaterny and Khlebny. This building is a most interesting example of avant-garde architecture. Few people know, however, that it was on the steps of this stair that the famous scenes from the film Moscow Does Not Believe in Tears were filmed. Until the 1930s, this spot was occupied by the Nativity of Christ Church, but the new Soviet government had no use for it. So they had it torn down, and in its place they had new apartments built for former political prisoners of Tsarist Russia. It should be said, however, that the new building wasn't used for its original purpose for long. The 1930s saw the start of the Stalin purges, and the building eventually ended up as the residence of the State Theatre of Cinema Actors. It was designed by the Vesnin brothers, the famous constructivism architects, and is thus one of the most prominent examples of Moscow constructivism. So what was constructivism all about? The architects of the period admired structures constructed from new materials, such as reinforced concrete and steel, and believed that buildings constructed in this manner were perfect as they were and didn't require any decoration. At the very start of the 20th century, luxurious mansions began to appear along the street. The most notable of them was banker Schlossberg's estate house, built in the early 1910s. It's a real Italian-style mansion. The rustic masonry facade, designed to look like it was made of stone, and the Venetian window on the second floor are the homage to Renaissance architecture. Today, the building is the official residence of the German ambassador. Next to the Schlossberg house, we have another estate house, that of the factory owner Mindovsky, and this building is a typical example of Moscow modern architecture. Modern architecture took some time to win the hearts and minds in Moscow. Many clients regarded this style as too fanciful and pretentious, while critics generally panned this new trend. So, in Moscow, modern architecture didn't last long, but it did leave us some stunning estate houses. This particular example was designed by the famous Moscow-based architect Lev Kekushev, who drew inspiration from nature. Just take a look at the elegant curved lines. And this stunning estate house was built immediately after the fire of 1812. It's one of the best examples of Moscow Empire architecture. You can see elements of Empire architecture here in these simple and elegant pillars and the lion masks. And the most interesting bit here is the authentic 19th century light fixtures. Count Gagarin, the owner of this estate, was fond of horses, so he had an entire arena built here. It is no longer used for its intended purposes, though, having been converted to yet another office block. It is no coincidence that we have a Gorky monument here. The thing is, the building today houses the Gorky Institute of World Literature. The Gnessin Russian Academy of Music was founded 125 years ago. However, it was only after the Second World War that it moved into Povarskaya Street. The Gnessin Russian Academy of Music was founded by Yevgenia, Elena and Maria Gnessins, pianists and graduates of Moscow Conservatory, and was originally based in a building in Gagarinsky Pereulok. The idea to build the music academy was first conceived in the 1890s. Classes were offered to both children and adults, with some students being taught free of charge. During the first few years, the Gnessin sisters were the only instructors at the academy. Now it's housed in two different buildings. One has pillars and is a prominent example of Stalinist architecture, while the other is a Soviet modernism structure. And you will probably recognize this building from the film Ivan Vassilievich Back to the Future. It's the St. Simeon the Stylite Church. The stone church was built in 1676 on the orders of Tsar Fyodor Alexeyevich, in place of an older wooden church that had been built here in 1625. And according to one version, it was consecrated on the day of the coronation of Boris Godunov, as that day fell on St. Simeon the Stylite Day. This is the church where a secret wedding was held between serf Praskovya Zhemchugova and Count Sheremetyev, and later this church was attended by Nikolai Gogol in the last years of his life. That's it. Today we've taken a stroll down a Moscow street that has perhaps the largest number of embassies in it. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Stay at home and watch us online.